Hi everyone, this is Debbie from Project 39 Mini Albums, and I want to show you what else I made with our graduate paper from Country Craft Creations. This is a design team project. First of all, I did this mini album, a graduation mini album, and that you will see a link below, and just click on that. It'll wait till you're done with the video and then you can go check that out. But what I had left over, because I cut paper to this size, it was about 5 inches and I had 3 inches left. That's simplifying things, but just so you have an idea. So I had this size left over, and so I wanted to use, and I had a lot of good size pieces of paper, so I wanted to use that. So I decided to make some cards. I'm going to show you a couple of the simpler cards that I made, and there is a tutorial for or a project share a lot. I tell you how I did it. So first of all, this one paper had congratulations there in the corner. So I cut that out. I fussy cut around it. It already had that black outline. You had to look real careful, but you will see it. And then I put it on some gold glitter cardstock and then fussy cut around that as well. I put that on. It's a black card, and on top of the black base I put a gold foil, and on top of the gold foil I put, I think this is about a 2 3/4 inch piece by 5, and this is about a 1 inch piece by 5, and then I put some of the gold glitter paper, just a 1/2 inch strip. I fussy cut the balloons out, and then I added a little string to the bottom. I popped that up with some dimensional foam, and so that made, this one doesn't have balloons on this paper, this one does, and I think I have one more, and this one. So 3 similar papers, all sort of fun. You know, the little balloon with the string adds a neat little touch to it. Inside I just put some white cardstock and a piece of the gold foil paper that was left over after I cut this out. So that was simple, super duper simple to start with. Then I wanted to make 5 by 7 cards because, as I said, I had 3 inch pieces of paper left over. I haven't used this one yet just because I like that, and I guess we'd have to cover it, and I just am not sure yet. I will, but not sure yet. Okay, so this is a 5 by 7 card. So again, that's a 3 inch piece. It is 3 inches by about 4 1/2. And same with that, and then the gold foil is just 1/8 of an inch smaller than the 5 by 7. So I have the top and then the bottom. I like this on the bottom here because it sort of weighed it down. Just in my mind, it weighed it down. I tried it both ways and it would work. I had a die that said celebrate, and I used my gold foil paper. I put it on a piece of this white scrap that was left over. I mean, you could use this. It didn't have much of a pattern. It had a little pattern. And then I put that on some black cardstock. I had a strip of this left over. Well, you'll see the paper coming up. And that worked really nice. And then I made these hats. And I show you a little bit later in my video how I made the hat. Basically, it's just cutting the paper, adding a brad, and then I made the tassel. And I show you how to make the tassel. When I first made it, I just had them in black, and I didn't think it would stand out that much. So I had just received this distress paint. This is tarnished brass. A gold would be just as good, but this worked fabulous. It looks gold. It's on a dauber. So I just ran it along the edge of my hat pieces. And again, I make the hat and the tassel a little bit later and show you how to do it. It's real quick. I wouldn't say it's easy. It's small and tedious, but they come out really cool. So there is that. And inside, I put some black cardstock, some off-white on the top that I inked around the edges, just gently. And then I cut one of the hats from some of the paper. So I think that in itself makes a nice card. So that's number one of the 5x7s. So this is the same idea. This was just one of the elements. I was turning it back and forth. I wasn't sure if I wanted to use it. And then I decided that's a nice focal piece on there. And then there's again that strip. And then I put congratulations just on some with black cardstock on some off-white that I inked around the edges. I did not want to put this on a black piece. I just thought that would, it just didn't look good. It just replicated this with the black. I don't know. It just didn't look good in my mind. So there is 5x7 number 2. Similar, but I put the sentiment down here. I actually also, there's a brad on the hats, and I used the paint on that, and I'm really happy with how that paint came out. And then that's just one of the pieces from, you could use a piece of ribbon if you wanted to, but that's one of the pieces from the paper. Okay, so see how I wanted this on the top here because there was so much going on, so black. To me, this was heavier than that, but you might not think so, and you can do it the way you want. Same thing. I die cut celebrate, put it on some off-white piece of the designer paper, put that on black. I had some gold little dotty things. They're not enamel dots. They look sort of metallic to me, but I didn't want to put a hat on here because if you put it here, it gets in the way. I guess I could have put another hat here, but I didn't want to. So anyhow, I had that in my stash and just added that. So anyhow, I just thought that was a little more masculine, having those there. And then when you're done cutting this paper, if you cut it 5 inches, then you have about a 3-inch piece. This is about 3.5. And I just put that on some gold foil and layered that. So I put the gold foil rectangle down and then the gold foil rectangle with this piece on it. Added 3 large enamel dots, put congratulations down here. This does have a little design to it. It's not my favorite, but still it's a nice card. And then these two, just trying to use up all the scraps. On this one, you know, the hats look sort of sketchy. Not sketchy. They have a sketched look to them. They don't look sketchy. And so I wanted to add that. So I needed to use some white gel marker, gel pen. I don't know. The idea is there. I don't know if it got lost in the translation. I do like what I did with the congratulations. I put first congratulations in black and then put this white on top of it. So it has sort of a shadow effect. So there is that. And then the final one, I had made a smaller, I keep calling it hat. I guess it's a graduation cap. It says congrats. This is just one of those pieces. It was a frame around one of the papers, and I cut that out, added some gold foil paper, put it on top of this, and I think that came out pretty cool. So really easy. These cards, you know, there's not that much to them, but I think they came out pretty cool. So let me show you how I made them. All right, so first you see these rectangles with a hole cut out. So I cut the rectangles to use as the foil first layer, and I cut that 4 inches by 5 1/4. And then I cut a square out of it because I can use that for something else. And I actually used it to die cut the sentiment out of. So the card base is 4¼ by 5½. I just cut the paper. This was 8½ by 11, so I cut it 4¼ and then scored it at 5½. So it's sort of that long fold. The balloon paper with the confetti streamers is 2¾ by 5. The smaller paper that's on the right side, I call it the dot paper, that's just 1" by 5. And then I cut a little piece of glitter cardstock to separate the two, and that's just ½ inch, so ½ inch by 5. So as you see, I put on that first layer, the gold foil, then I put on the confetti paper, then I put on the 1" paper, the dot paper on the right hand side. And I'm inking around the edges because some of the white was showing and I just felt like it was just detracting. But after I did a couple, I realized, you know what, nobody notices this stuff but me. So anyhow, I'm doing a couple of cards at a time. Sometimes if you need to make a lot of the same cards, assembly line is the way to go. And two, I had enough paper, I could make 3 cards. So now I'm taking the sentiment, and as I had said before, I fussy cut around the congratulations, laid it on the gold glitter, and then fussy cut around that. Here I'm trying to figure out where I want to put this exactly. So I add glue to the balloon, and then add glue to my sentiment, and move the little string that the balloon's on, and just try to make sure it's centered. Cut the little string on the balloon, and there is 1 card. So that was pretty easy to do, wasn't it? So there's number 1. So now I'm going to work on the other similar card, and this is where I got the bright idea of using some dimensional adhesive, but it's old, it's been in my stash for a while, so I added a little bit of glue just to make sure that it's not going to come off. Now this is the one that just has the confetti on the paper on the right hand side. It didn't have balloons on it, and I sort of like this a lot more than I did the ones with the balloons. The balloon paper distracted. And you could also use this card for birthday. There's nothing wrong with that. Or New Year's. New Year's be a great card. Happy New Year. So again, I'm trying to figure out the best placement for where the congratulations is going to be. This time I put it a little lower, just because that way you see the balloon and the string, and it's just all fun. I'm trying to make sure the string shows also. I wanted it to sort of swerve. And then I cut off the little string at the bottom. And there is number 2. Okay, now we're going to make a tassel. So I have some jute string that came from Country Craft Creations. They sell it by the yard. The first piece is about 4 inches long. The second piece is about 6 inches long, and the third piece is about 24 inches long. So I took a piece of cardstock that was in my stash. It's 2 inches. I fold it in half, so it's really 1 inch. And I'm going to take a piece of the string, the 24 inch, wrap it around the cardstock until it's all done. Sorry, I'm out of the camera lens here, but I'm just wrapping it. All right, there we go. Then I'm going to take the smaller piece, 4 inch piece, just go through the center and just tie it off. I'm sorry, I try to do this with some light. I moved the light in a second, but it's really just my hands are in the way, and I don't know that the light would even help that. So I'm just tying it, and don't cut that string because we're going to use that. I'm double knotting it. Okay, and then I'm taking it off of my cardstock. I'm trying to figure out which string is which. Okay, I have the 2 main strings, and I am going to tape that. Well, in some cases I'll tape it onto the table. So now I'm going to take the other piece of string and tie it about 1/8 of an inch below where the knot is, just so it sort of gathers everything together. It's not difficult, it's just very small, so it's very tedious. So anyhow, I'm knotting that, and then I'm wrapping the string, one of the strings, around 3 times, maybe 4, and then I will knot it again. I will put a double knot in. It is easier if you use a thicker string or yarn, but the look isn't as pretty. I like the fine look. And I've used different things. Besides the jute, I had some gold cording, really thin cording, some like gold embroidery floss or some white embroidery floss. That would work too. So now I'm cutting the bottom, getting all of those little pieces all together, and it makes a tassel. So the piece at the top is where you're going to hang it onto the cap. To make the graduation cap, take a 1-inch piece of cardstock, and we're going to put it in the trimmer with the top corner of that on 1.5. And then the bottom, I'm going to rotate the bottom till that's on 1. All right, now I'm going to turn it over and put that edge, the beveled edge, on the 1-inch piece and cut. And there is the diamond for the cap. All right, so now I'm taking a circle punch, and I think it's about 1.5 inches, and I cut off a little bit on that 1-inch piece and cut the other side. So the center is where the 2 of the circles meet. So there we go. And then I just cut a little piece off of the top. That's going to be the bottom of the cap. You'll see in a second. See? I didn't like the angle of that circle, so I had to change it. All right, so there's that. But now to make sure that they show up, I take my little distress paint and just go around the edge. I love this stuff. I'm gonna have to get more in different colors. It goes on beautifully. All right, I'm messing it up a little bit, but you'll see when it's all done. It goes on nicely and really puts a nice edge. It's a really pretty burnished gold, which goes perfect with this paper. So I put it on the bottom part, and then I will glue the 2 together. Come on, get the glue. There, doesn't it look like a graduation cap? So easy. I'm finding where the center is, and I'm taking my little hole punch and punching a hole. And then I will grab a brad that I have. You know, these are the things you have in your stash and you don't know what to do with them. Well, here's a perfect use for them. And you could match the brad and the string that you make the tassel out of to match the school colors if you wanted to. I was just matching it with a card because I didn't have anyone in mind. But, I mean, you could make it burgundy, and I think that would be fabulous. You could make that cap blue, although that might not look good on the card. But if you were making these caps for something else, you can make it whatever color you want. So anyhow, I put the 2 strings in from the top, put the brad in, turning it over and pushing the brad down. I'll trim off the string, and I'll make sure when I glue this down, I add a bunch of glue so that tassel doesn't come off. And then try to put my little needle in the glue top. All right, and there we go. There we go. There is the graduation cap. Isn't that cool? Okay, now I'm going to work on the 5x7 card. So I have a 5x7 card base. I'm going to cut my gold foil to 4 3/4 by 6 3/4. And then the same as I did before, you can cut a hole out of that big piece of gold foil cardstock, or else you're sort of wasting that whole center piece. Anyhow, I already put some glue on it and I am centering it on my card base. Then I have all these other scraps, and these I cut down to 3 1/4 by 4 1/2. So once I figure out which I want on top, which I want on bottom, I go ahead and glue them down, and I did ink around some of the edges. So I'm centering this on the bottom half of my gold foil, and then I'll go ahead and take the upper portion and center it, and just make sure all the glue is not on the gold foil. So I'll put this piece on, and it doesn't matter if those two don't meet, because you're going to use one of these black pieces. You could use a piece of ribbon as well, but that's going to go in the center. I normally don't like things exactly in the center, but I was using these pieces of cardstock or pattern paper that were left over, and I really was stuck with the measurements I had. All right, and then I try to figure out which is the best. Do I want the congratulations? Do I want congrats? And I decide congrats is fine with this, or celebrate even. I think I use celebrate on the next one. But I cut down that little piece of off-white paper, and that is one of the pattern papers. It's the one there, there's a certificate on one side, that's the other side. I ink around the edges, and then center the congrats on it. There's the celebrate. Yay, let's celebrate. So to glue it on, I just put some glue on a piece of paper and dab that onto it. Sometimes when you have all those little teeny pieces, it's just easier to do that. And then I push it down. Yay, celebrate. And then I put that on a piece of black cardstock, which is 3 inches, but this is going to depend on what you have for a sentiment. And you don't need to use gold foil. You could just stamp it in black, and you could stamp it onto this paper. That would be fabulous. So now I always try to decide where is the best placement for my sentiment. So I will mess around with that and look at it. Do I want it here? Do I want it there? I end up putting it right in the center on that black piece, and I like it. It's balanced. To me, when I'm doing cards, it's got to look balanced. I decide that I want to pop up the hat, so I take some of this crafty foam tape, put a little bit on the top and a little bit on the bottom. I love these graduation caps. Aren't they cool? And then there we go. And when I opened it, I realized, oh, the inside is so plain. So I cut a piece of black cardstock, and I cut a piece of off-white, and I had inked around the edges of the off-white already. And just layer it. I have the smallest layer. I think I cut one 3/16 of an inch smaller than the other, which is 3/16 of an inch smaller than the 5x7. Or you could go 1/4 of an inch or 1/2 an inch. And there. That, number one, it's more balanced when you hold the card in your hand. It's more balanced. If you just used a piece of artisan cardstock for the base, you'll see what I mean. You add all those layers to the front of the card, you might feel like you need to add something to the inside. And I had fussy cut this little hat, graduation cap, from one of the pieces of paper, and I just added it to the top just to have something inside. And there we go. All right, and for the final card that I'm going to show you, I took some off-white paper and inked around the edges. The gold foil on these are 3 3/4 by 3 1/2 for I would just make both of them the same size, or it depends on what scraps you have. And then the paper that I put on it is 3 3/8 by 3 1/4. So I put the one with the diamonds, the Harlequin look, and that's going to go on the bottom. Once I can get the glue to go out, there we go. And when I put it on the page, I keep it just about a 1/4 of an inch from the side and a 1/4 of an inch from the top. If you're not sure of spacing, you can use those mini spacers from Country Craft Creations. So I do the same with the top piece. So obviously it's going to overlap just a little bit. And then I put the congratulations down at the bottom. Now, I'm not nuts about this because it's not balanced in my mind. Here we go with the balancing act again. But because there's a teeny border on the paper that I put the congratulations die cut on, to me, I don't know. It's just not my favorite. But anyhow, I do put that down at the bottom. It is on a background. It doesn't, you don't see the gold foil on the other ones, but it is on black, so it's a little different. And then I grab out of my stash, I have some enamel dots, and I have fun trying to get them up and putting them on. So I go through all the trouble of putting on these teeny ones, and to me the way to get them to look even is you put the top one down first, then the bottom one, and then you figure out where the center is, and usually it's centered. If I go the top one, then the middle one, and the bottom, they don't look like they're evenly spaced, but that's just me. But anyhow, I go through all the trouble of putting on these teeny tiny, yeah, get it on there, teeny tiny enamel dots. And I say to myself, all right, fabulous. And there's my last card. But you know, I didn't like it. So I put the larger enamel dots on, and I think it looks a little better. And so there are the cards I made with the leftover scraps from our graduate, the 8x8 paper collection from Country Craft Creations. If you'd like to see how you can get this paper, check in the description box below, and it'll give you the link to the store. Once again, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate you coming along. Have a fabulous day.